Ambassador Puri, Ambiji, Prakashji, and all my dear young friends participating in this webinar. Ambassador Puri introduced us to two facets of our homeland, our motherland, India. He talked about the ancient Vedic heritage of our country. That makes India one of the most ancient nations in the world. He also talked about the present demographics of India. As he rightly pointed out, today the population of the youth in India, taking 35 years as the age of the youth, is about 65%. So that suggests the two important facets of India. One, that our country, India, is a very ancient nation, a nation of millennia old history, a civilization and culture dating back to several millennia, an ancient nation, but also a very youthful nation. This may sound a little contradictory, but that is the reality of our country. A very ancient nation with a very youthful population. If there is any one leader who bridges these two facets, the ancientness of our country and the youthfulness of the contemporary India, the bridge maker is Swami Vivekananda. The very name of Swami Vivekananda sends through our bodies a galvanizing shock of strength. Standing at Chicago, he proclaimed that I am the proudest Hindu ever born on this earth. But he added, my pride is not in myself. My pride is not because I look beautiful, because I am handsome, or not because I am very knowledgeable, or not even because I speak very good English. My pride is because of my ancestry, because of my history, because of my culture and civilization. I come from a country that has offered certain valuable jewels of thought to the entire mankind. That makes me a proud Hindu. We are today remembering that personality. He who is, as I mentioned, a bridge between India's very great past and a very youthful, energetic present, who inspires generations after generations, as it has been rightly pointed out Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You are audible.
Okay, sorry, I hear a lot of disturbance. Sorry, so he's an important bridge between the India's ancient past and the current energetic present. I'm happy that I'm able to share some of my thoughts for a few minutes about that great personality and his message to the youth, of course, of India, but also to the youth everywhere, wherever they are living. Vivekananda's very important message to the youth who have the urge of doing something for their country, for their community, for their people is threefold. Number one, always have pride in your past. A society that does not respect its past, that does not respect its history, its culture, its civilization, its forefathers, can never prosper, can never progress. So the first thing that the youth of our country, but the youth everywhere should understand is to respect, have pride in their past. That doesn't mean everything in the past is glorious. But whatever good things are there in your past, you should be proud enough to own them up and wear them proudly on your sleeves. Have pride in the past. But equally important is the second message of Swamiji to the youth, and that is have the pain of the present. When you look around, see the contemporary reality in your country, in your neighborhood, in your community. When you see so many bad things happening, unwanted things happening, do you feel? Do you feel bad? Does it pain you? Swami Vivekananda wanted the young men and of course young women to have that pain in the hearts about the present. That feeling, like pride, feeling of pride about the past, feeling of pain about the present. The second quality Swamiji wanted all of us to imbibe. In fact, his famous quote was, he asked the youth of the world, youth of the country, do you feel that millions are starving today? Millions have been starving for ages. India is described as Annapurna, Ratnagarbha, land of jewels, land of prosperity, land of abundance. But millions starve today. Okay, not starving probably today, because the governments have taken care of basic food security, but still people are still struggling with poverty, illiteracy, lack of healthcare facilities. But is it just a matter of fact information for you, or do you feel? Does it make you restless? Does it make you sleepless? Has it entered into your blood, coursing through your veins, become almost consonant with your heartbeat? Have you become almost mad with that one idea of the misery and suffering of your people, and forgot about your name, your fame, your money, your family, your prosperity? Do you have that kind of an intense feeling about the present? That is the second demand that Swamiji makes of the youth of our country. But then he makes a very important third demand, and that is have great dreams about the future. Those who cannot even dream about a great future can never achieve anything in life. Do you have dreams about the future? When I say dreams about the future, every young man or every young woman has dreams about his or her own future. Everybody wants to become rich. Everybody wants to gain respect in the society, want to have our own house, our own vehicle. But do you also have dreams about your country, your society? So these three things, this triangle of pride in the past, pain about the present, and dreams about the future, this triad is what helps you make a great nation. Nation building is based on these three very fundamental virtues. The youth of our nation, but youth of any nation, should try to imbibe these qualities, friends. And of course, once you have these three things, then you will prepare to work for the building of reconstruction of your own society, your own community, and your own nation. Nation building is not an easy task. You need to dedicate your entire life, physically, mentally, emotionally. You should invest in that. It's not just about gaining something. If I get something in return, then I will do something for the country. That is not the bargain that will build nations. You ask anybody in India today, are you a patriot? Everybody has a proof, evidence to show that he or she is a patriot. He will pull out a receipt and show you, look, you are questioning my patriotism. When floods happened in Kerala, I donated 1 day's salary for flood relief. Or when tsunami occurred, we collected rice and sent to Tamil Nadu. Or when fire accident happened, we gave clothes to those people who are affected. You are questioning my patriotism. You will not come across anybody in India or anywhere who will say that I am not a patriot. But problem is, for these people to become patriots, either floods should come, or tsunami should happen, or some fire accident should happen. Then they will become patriots. This is called part-time patriotism. Nations are not built on part-time patriotism. Nations are built when the young men of those nations have that commitment, that courage, that conviction and dedication to building the nation. That is what Swami Vivekananda wanted all of us to imbibe. Anjali was quoting Vivekananda, that famous quote that every young man likes, muscles of iron and nerves of steel. But she also added that very important third line. Muscles of iron, nerves of steel, many youngsters have in this country or in the world. You just go to a gym, for in 6 months you will get muscles of iron and nerves of steel. But you also should have something more. You have muscles of iron, nerves of steel, but you are scared of a squirrel. No, Vivekananda says, have muscles of iron, nerves of steel, but that's about your physical strength. What about your inner strength? And have that mind which is made of that material out of which the thunderbolt is made. Do you have that strength in you? Swami Vivekananda's famous message to the youth is, Abhi, be fearless, be strong. Strength is not just about physical bodybuilding, it's about inner strength, inner courage, courage to face the toughest situations, but work for the mitigation of sufferings of the ordinary people, ordinary citizens, ordinary neighbors. That kind of youthful spirit is what Swami Vivekananda wanted all our youngsters to imbibe. Together with that, you must remember that Swami Vivekananda was a very modern monk. He was ahead of his times. He had dreams about an India which was very modern. He would tell the young men that you will be rotten in a hell if you don't adopt new technologies. He was en route to Chicago. He does a stopover at Tokyo, looking at the industrial development in Tokyo. He tells the youngsters of India, come on, learn from them, industrialize India. This he was talking 100 years ago, 120 years ago, friends. industrialize India. He had great respect for the potential of our women. He would tell that don't talk just in terms of protecting women. In fact, when somebody asks Vivekananda, how do you think we should protect our women? Vivekananda laughs out loudly. He says, protecting women? You are going to protect. She is Swayam Durga. She is Shakti. She is Mahakali. You are going to protect her. Learn to respect her. This is what Vivekananda told. He was an utterly modern monk. Imbibe that modernity in Vivekananda. That is what as youth we have to do. That is why when you dream of India, when you dream of your country, it's about building a Naya Bharat, a modern new India. Vivekananda inspired generations after generations. There was a reference to how he inspired leaders like Subhash Chandra Bose. Mahatma Gandhi could not meet Vivekananda during his lifetime because Vivekananda passed away very early, in his very early age of 39 years in 1902. But Gandhiji always used to say that I could not meet Vivekananda, I am sorry about that. But when I read about him, the patriotism in me grows manifold. It increases manifold. And most important message that Rabindranath Tagore gave to all of us, every Indian, every young man, is he tells, Tagore says, if you want to understand India, study Vivekananda. Study him more deeply. So much great message is there in his life, in his teachings. Try to imbibe those great values that he taught to all of us through his life and through his teachings. That will be the real tribute to Swami Vivekananda when you remember him on an auspicious occasion like this. But also that will pave the way for us to become active partners in building the future of our motherland, of our country. Thank you, friends. It's always a pleasure, always a delight to interact with youngsters, and I thank the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you and namaskar.
The first question is, what is NRI youth's role in nation building as we spend a significant part of our life outside Bharat?
Firstly, never forget your roots. I have great respect for our NRI friends, but as the generations grow, the second generation Indians, the third generation Indians slowly lose their connect with India and its contemporary reality. It is important to connect with India's religious and cultural past, but it is also important to be always connected with India's contemporariness, India's present as well. So my first urge request to the NRI friends is, whether you are a first generation NRI or a second generation or a third generation, you become citizens of different countries, even in spite of that, never disconnect from your roots. A Chinese person never disconnects from his Chinese nation. A Japanese person never disconnects from his Japanese nation. A Jew will never disconnect from his Israeli roots. But sometimes we Indians start saying that we are not Indians, we are Americans. Yes, be proud Americans. Be proud Emiratis. But always remember the contemporary reality, our connect with our motherland. Never forget or never give up that connect. Secondly, whatever you can contribute to the development of the society in your place, in your state, in your town, in your village, try to do that. Most of the people who go to other countries in search of livelihoods, they go to mostly developed countries. They go to Europe, they go to USA. Of course, nowadays many people go to the Middle East as well. The prosperity of many of the Western countries has a link to India. I don't want to dwell too deep into it, except to say that many countries in Europe are rich because of the money looted from India. On a lighter note, the capital was from India. They made profits, they became rich, they gave employment to Indians, fair enough. Now, the profits that you make there, part of it should come back to India. So contribute to the development of your village, your school, your temple, your roads, your public places, your friends, your colleagues, your people in your villages. Always try to do something for India. And lastly, wherever you are, be proud of your Indianness. When you come across another Indian suffering, you should be there to help him. When you come across any insult or injury happening to India's image, you should be there to guard it, guard the country's image, guard the country's interests. So be there for India in whichever country you are living. I think these are the three important messages all our NRI friends should always remember and try and do whatever they can. Thank you.
Considering the strength we have, the large number of youth population, where should be our focus as youth, which will lead to the prosperity of the nation?
In India, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the last 6 years has done enormous efforts to harness the youth power of our country. The latest campaign of Prime Minister, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, is actually about making the youth of India stand on their own feet, and through that effort strengthen India's economy, make it a developed country, and make it a strong partner, a strong contributor in the global supply chains. So in the last 6 years, lot of schemes, lot of projects have been introduced. We have introduced Mudra Yojana to encourage youngsters to take money from the banks and financial institutions and try and create their own enterprises, business enterprises, so that youth of India, instead of remaining job seekers, can actually become job providers. Similarly, through campaigns like Startup India, he encouraged the innovativeness of Indian youth. Indian youth has enormous innovative potential. Today, there is a lot of government support and encouragement for innovation. Do you know that countries like Israel, today, when they joined in the OECD, world's richest group of countries, 20 countries, their GDP is higher than the average of OECD GDP. But do you know how they achieved it? By encouraging their youths into innovation and startups. In fact, Israel is called Startup Nation. It's also described as can-do nation, can-do country. That confidence that youth can do something new. Indians have to have that confidence. So our government under Prime Minister Modi is trying to channel, harness the potential of our youngsters in that direction so that they stand on their own feet They build their own fortunes. In the process, they build the fortunes of their fellow young men, fellow countrymen, and in the process, they will create a strong, prosperous, and developed India. An India which will not just remain a recipient, a beneficiary of the global supply chains, but an active contributor, active player in the global supply chains. Today, Government of India is encouraging youth in that direction. Besides that, of course, in all the nation building activity, whether it is Swachh Bharat, keeping India clean, or keeping India united, or of late recently, we are even encouraging youths to join in service organizations like NCC and NSS in large numbers, especially in the coastal areas of our country, thereby encouraging them to become partners in national unity and national security also. So today the government's focus is very much on harnessing the potential of India's youth for the future and progress of our country. Thank you.
You were quoting Swamiji in one of your talks in an Indian university about keeping our eyes, ears, and mouths shut, but to keep our hearts open. So, how do you think our Yuva can keep their hearts open being in the Gulf?
Wherever you are, that's why I said, have that feeling for our country, our people. As I said, Swami Vivekananda's, that second message, you have that intense feeling inside you. Unfortunately today, for most of us, the happenings around us are just a news item. We read a Malayalam paper online, read about what's happening there, just make a passing comment and forget by the afternoon. Does it really affect you inside? When Swamiji said it, remember, Swamiji did not preach things to people. He was in America. One day, he received a telegram from Calcutta. Bengal was suffering from the plague virus at that time, the worst plague virus, which killed, estimates, about 2 million people. So he got a telegram from Calcutta that people were dying in hordes in Calcutta of plague. He was staying in the house of a rich lady in America. At the midnight, that lady noticed that Swami Vivekananda was strolling in the balcony right at the midnight. She came upstairs and asked him, "Sir, do you have any difficulty? Is the bed not good for you to lay down and sleep?" Then she noticed tears were rolling down his cheeks. She asked him, "What happened? Have I done anything less to take care of you? Have I put you through any trouble?" Vivekananda silently showed her the telegram. She was so surprised. Something happened several thousand miles away in Calcutta. Swamiji was sitting in the most, prosperous and happy country, enjoying all the goods of life there. But when the news of the suffering of his fellow countrymen reached him, he could not sleep. He started crying. That is what is called shutting your mouth, opening you the doors of your heart. You can always say that government in Kerala is responsible for the mess. You can always criticize government of India. But no, don't criticize. Utter no words of condemnation. Close your lips and suffer from inside and see if you can do something to alleviate that suffering. That is what Swamiji's message was when he said it. When he said it, what he practiced, what he experienced in his life, that only he conveyed through those words. I think every one of us should have that feeling. When you come across a beggar on the street, it is one thing to slowly find a way away from him, or pull out your wallet and take out some money and drop it in his bowl. But it's quite another thing to feel so sad. Do you feel the sadness? Do you feel bad about the poverty? That feeling comes when you stop thinking only with your brain, start thinking with your heart. That is what Swamiji meant when he said, keep your heart open, keep your mouth shut. Thank you.
How can youth as policymakers can assure that we promote Atmanirbhar Bharat, yet keeping in mind the interests of foreign investment?
First of all, let us not misunderstand the idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat does not mean or should not mean shutting our doors to investment from outside, taking India back to bullock cart age. No, that is not Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat, it's a very big concept, but let me just explain to you in 3 words. First is Atma Gaurav Bharat. Atma Gaurav means you should have self-dignity, self-respect. You should be proud of using your own products. You should be proud to encourage your own industry in wherever it is possible. Not out of compulsion, but out of pride. A Japanese young man will feel proud when he has a pen made in Japan in his pocket. A British young man feels proud when he has a pen made in England in his pocket. Unfortunately, an Indian young man feels proud when he has a made in Japan or made in England pen in his pocket. Why is it so? That is where the first thing is have self-dignity, Atma Gaurav. Prime Minister's slogan for that is vocal for local. Number 2, India has to become self-sufficiency, achieve self-sufficiency. Atma Samruddhi. For all small petty things, you should not look for some other country to help you. Do you know when Corona struck India, we were not even having enough gloves for our doctors and nurses. We were not having PPE gowns. We had to import them from Vietnam and China. Even today, we make the textile for jean pants. Every young man and every young girl wears jean pants. We make textiles for jean pants, but we don't make zippers for jean pants. We import them. Why is it so? Many such examples I can give you. So can India become self-sufficient in many ordinary things? I am not saying India should produce Tesla car in India indigenously. Maybe the technology, high technology, we can always import. But self-sufficiency, Atma Samruddhi is second quality, and Prime Minister's slogan for that was Make in India. Third is the most important, Atma Vishwas, self-confident. India has to rise as a self-confident nation, not restricting itself, not shutting off from all sides, but rising as a brand maker. Small, tiny countries like Finland, Norway, Austria, small countries, populations with 10 million, 20 million, 60 million, they have created global brands. A country with 1.38 billion population, can it create global brands? India has to think with that self-confidence, Atma Vishwas. For that Prime Minister's slogan was Make for the world. Vocal for local, make in India, make for the world. Together is Atmanirbhar Bharat. In this, to achieve these 3 things, wherever you need to take the support of capital from outside, it's always welcome. That is Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, if to make in India, to make India self-sufficient, if India has to produce its own vaccine for COVID, if some foreign investor joins hands with an Indian investor, it's most welcome. That is a part of Atmanirbharata. If India has to export and become an important exporter in the world, that is a part of Atmanirbharata. So please understand Atmanirbharta as a comprehensive idea. It's not about shutting India's doors and windows on the outside investors. It is instead using the outside investments to make India self-reliant, not dependent on other countries. That is an Atmanirbharta. That is the way forward for India. Thank you.
What is your view about the rise in unemployment in Bharat?
India, as in fact, as Honorable Ambassador has pointed out in the beginning itself, is a very fast-growing youthful nation. Every year, India adds 20 million employable youth. That is 2 crore employable youth every year. So the the demand for employment is ever-growing demand in India. Indian government and Indian economic system is trying to address this challenge. The important step that we are taking is, while we look for creating enough employment for able youngsters, we also encourage more and more youngsters to turn to self-employment, becoming employers than looking for employment. Now, Government of India is ready to offer financial support without asking for any counter guarantee. Normally, if you want to take a loan from any Indian bank, you need to pledge some counter guarantee, your house, your mother's gold, or something else, some land. But under Prime Minister Modi, it was decided that we don't ask anything as counter guarantee. The youth themselves are counter guarantee for us. They should come, take money, and set up their own enterprises, stand on their own feet. They should become, of course, employed, self-employed, but also in the process, that employment seeker should actually become employment provider for a few youngsters around him. We are encouraging that. We are encouraging startups in a big way. We have a program called Stand Up India. Through Stand Up India, we are encouraging self-employment of women, scheduled caste people and scheduled tribe people in a big way. So through all these efforts, India's employment challenge is being addressed by the government. But unfortunately, while we are addressing the employment challenge, it's a very growing demand in India. India is not like China, which is actually an aging nation. India is a growing young nation. So we are still meeting that challenge very efficiently, effectively. But in the meantime, we had this Corona challenge. You must remember that Corona, the kind of impact it has on big industry is comparatively less when compared to the impact it has on small, tiny industry, startups. As I said, Mudra Yojana based industry. Those startups, those small enterprises have suffered badly. That is why suddenly you feel that in India the unemployment has increased. It is a temporary setback we got because of Corona, but government is taking a large number of measures, important measures. Through them, we will overcome this Corona-induced challenge. It's a Corona-induced challenge. This employment challenge, this we will overcome and again march forward on the path that I mentioned through self-employment and also through government employment. Together, we will overcome the challenge of unemployment in India. Thank you.
So many of us youths want to become doctors, engineers, and any other profession, but how should the youth approach politics?
First of all, become well educated. Politics today needs talented, thinking, of course, as far as possible, educated youngsters. Education is not necessarily any criteria, I am not saying that. But it's always good to have well-read people because we are in 21st century. We should be able to understand the kind of things that are happening around us in a more efficient way that calls for basic education. So get educated, have a good personal standing in society, then of course you can become active in politics also. But I would like to say one very important thing. During India's independence movement, politics used to be considered a mission. There was a missionary zeal. India should become independent, we should throw these Britishers out. That's why I have to be in politics. There used to be a missionary zeal at that time. Post-independence, unfortunately, I'm not making any specific comment about any individual politician, but generally I'm talking about it. Post-independence, it became a kind of a vocation. Politics में आ जाओ, पैसा बनाओ, make money. It's a vocation to make money. It's a vocation to get some power. Of late, we see a new trend. Professional politicians, like you said, doctors, engineers, etc. You go to a college to become an engineer or a doctor. In India, like in some other countries, today there are institutions that train politicians. I have nothing against those institutions per se, but politics cannot be a profession either. Just as it cannot be a vocation, it cannot be a profession. Politics should be a passion. Do you have that passion in you? Passion means the passion that I talked about in the context of Vivekananda's message. Do you have that passion in you? Are you ready to struggle and suffer for the well-being of our people? If you have that passion, then come and join politics. Most welcome. But not just as, like I became an engineer, I can also become an MLA, I can also become a professional politician. No. Don't look at politics as a profession or a vocation. Look at it with missionary passion. That was what we experienced during the independence movement. That is what is needed today for rebuilding India. We need people, politicians with passion, so that they don't become corrupt and other types of evils don't enter into them. So if you have that passion in you, you are most welcome. There are many avenues to rise in politics, if only you have that passion. But if you are in a hurry to become something in politics, because politics for you means power, that's not the right approach for entering politics. Thank you.
Next, two questions, I'll club them together. Do you think our education system helps the population take pride in it? And what's the role of youth in this? And also, do you think the new education policy has aligned the wisdom of Swami Vivekananda?
Of course, yes. The new education policy attends to the twin needs of India. Twin needs, I say, in the context of, since you mentioned about Swami Vivekananda, in the context of his vision. One is to generate patriotism, pride in India's culture, civilization, its value system, right from the time of our Vedas. So, instilling that sense of patriotism in the minds of the people, that is one aspect of our new education policy. But equally important is the second aspect, to create 21st century educated young men in India. The young men who are skilled, who are equipped with modern tools, those who know how to deal with the 21st century reality. That kind of modern, technological, skill-based training is also being imparted, is being planned to be imparted through the new education policy. I think it is a very revolutionary step that the present government has taken. The last time that we reformed our education system was in mid-70s. 40 years have passed. You all youngsters know that in the last 40 years, the world has completely changed. It has transformed. Today, areas like artificial intelligence, robotics, such frontier technologies, and issues like climate change, environmental protection, universal health care. These are the kind of new areas into which the world is entering. At such a juncture, you cannot produce the same kind of educated young men that you were producing 40 years ago. The new education policy addresses that very contemporary and very important need also of producing educated youngsters who are capable of addressing or tackling the 21st century reality and challenges. So that way, new education policy is a very important transforming agenda of our government. Thank you.
Yes, someone has asked if you could share a few words on Swamiji's Swadesh mantra, the mantra to nation building.
No, all that I have said about Swamiji's message is what he conveyed to all of you. But since you asked, let me share one final message of Swami Vivekananda with all the youngsters. You know, he once said that I consider every young person a traitor. Now you will all be offended if I say that. How can you call us traitors? What Swamiji said was, I consider every young man a traitor so long he will not work for the suffering millions of this country at whose cost he has been educated. It's a very important statement. Today, if we are lucky in our lives, we are able to study in Amity, not in Delhi but in Dubai, or we are able to travel to countries for higher education, it is because somebody back home, a farmer, a tiller, a labor, is working hard, making India's economy grow. That's the reason why we are able to have good education in India, in our schools, in our colleges. Having graduated, having learned education here, if you forget them, if you don't turn attention to the sufferings of those people, then you are no less than a traitor. That is the mantra of Vivekananda, that every individual young man and young woman should remember forever before you go to bed in the night, and as soon as you rise up in the morning from your sleep, remember that one sentence, I consider every educated as a traitor so long he will not work for the suffering millions of this country at whose cost he has been educated. Thank you.